Josh Patrick, and you're at Cracking the Cash Flow Code today. And today, my guest is Ben Wolf. Ben is we're going to have a great conversation today. I just got to tell you this because he does two of my favorite things. And he's just written a book about how to be a fractional C person. And he'll tell you the title of the book because I have no memory.
Yeah.
I'm too old for that. Fractional Leadership. That's it, by Ben Wolf. And Ben is also an EOS implementer, which means that he has been trained by the Entrepreneurial Operating System, Traction, Gino Wickman's group, on how to help you get great results from your business. So we're going to combine those two in our conversation today, but we're going to start off bringing Ben on, and he's going to tell us what fractional leadership is all about. So let's bring him on. Hey, Ben, how are you today?
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I've been actually looking forward to this all day because I love fractional leadership. I didn't realize you're an EOS person until we just had a short conversation before.
Mm-hmm.
Now we get to combine the two. So first, let's start with fractional leadership. What is it?
Well, fractional leadership simply means having somebody on your business's leadership team in marketing, sales, operations, finance, or technology, just like they would be if they were full-time, same type of role. They take ownership and accountability for some major function of the business, but they're just doing it on a fractional basis instead of full-time. The reason why people do that is because they need somebody with experience who's actually done this before, not is just figuring it out and reinventing the wheel for the first time, has experience with your size business or bigger. And the problem is, though, that a lot of times somebody like that could be 200, 250, 300,000 for a really experienced executive like that. You might need it, but you can't afford it, or it's taking too long of a rollout and a search process to be able to fill the position full time. So people who do this, like myself and many others in my network at Fractional Leadership, provide that kind of service to people. And you could have them fractionally for a fraction of the cost and not full time and still get most of the benefit of their experience.
So here's something I've learned about fractional leadership, and see if you agree with this.
Okay.
Most of the people listening to this podcast have somewhere between 10 and 50 employees.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is they don't even need a full-time leadership person. They don't need a full-time CFO. They don't need a full-time CMO, chief marketing officer. They might 100%. Need a full-time chief operating officer, but frankly, they don't have the funds to have something at a high level. Mm-hmm. And in my experience, a few hours a week or a few hours a month might be all they need. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, 100%. Sometimes it's because you can't afford it. Sometimes it's because 100%. I always say that also. A lot of times you don't need that person full time. For instance, I have a firm besides Fractional Leadership. I have another business, a firm that provides fractional integrator services, which is EOS terminology, as you know, for like a fractional COO. And very often that's not a full-time job. So what most people do is, if it is a full-time role, actually 20% of their time is they're being COO for the entire company. And 80% of the time, they're just sitting in another seat also. Maybe they're director of ops, which is kind of a functional level below the COO seat. Or they are project managing major projects a lot of the time. And that's how they spend most of their time, major cross-functional projects. And then 20% of the time they spend managing all the other functions of the business and making sure trains are running on time and all the different functions are working well together. But I definitely agree with you. A lot of times they're combined together. That's how people make it full-time. But very often, until you get a lot bigger, very often it's not a full-time job. So it definitely makes sense in that way as well.
So when you do your integrator work or your fractional work with your clients, do you charge by the hour, or do you charge by the relationship that you have? You set up, here's our scope of service, and here's what's going to cost you.
Yeah, no, I typically, most people, and including myself, are charged by a monthly retainer. I want people focused on, for certain accountabilities. I want people focused on the accountabilities, the results, not like nitpicking by the hour. There are those who do it by the hour. I should use the word like nitpicking. I shouldn't say that, because there are people, very good people, who do it by the hour, but most do not. And I personally don't prefer that method. I don't want people like they think with their lawyer, like, oh gosh, the clock's ticking every 6 minutes, calling this person, right? I don't want people having to think twice. people getting the results for, for an amount that's fair for that, for those type of results. So we do monthly retainer. Typically myself and the people in my firm are spending about a day a week with our clients. And there's a monthly retainer for certain accountabilities that we're doing with them.
So what could somebody expect to spend if they were to use you a day a week?
So that's a great question. It depends a lot on the business, because different businesses need different fractional integrators or fractional CXOs of whatever type. They need different ones. I mean, people who have experience. Some people need a specific industry experience. Some, sometimes if you're a 15-person company, you need one kind of person with one level of experience. But the 200-person company is just going to need somebody that has a lot experience with bigger companies, and oftentimes that kind of person charges more. So it's going to really depend. But as a rule of thumb, for just speaking about fractional integrator firm like mine, as a rule of thumb, I've found that the right fractional integrators for people, if they are between 5 and 20 people, is typically around the range of $6,000 to $8,000 a month for about a day a week. And those that are 21 people or more, over 20 people, could be, 50, 100, 200 people, depending on the organization or the person's experience, typically is about $8,000 to $10,000 a month. And it really just depends on who's the right fit for the particular company.
So $6,000
Gives you a
a
rule of
month.
thumb, though.
Yeah, $6,000 a month. $72,000 a year, which is, for a lot of these folks, they say, "Gee, that's at the high end of who we pay anybody in our company."
Right.
The truth is, even though $72,000 would be a lot of money, you really need to look at what the results are.
Right.
And I recently had a conversation.
You're not getting the kind of person you'd get for $72,000 a year as a full-time hire. It's a
No,
completely
you are not. You are
different
not.
person.
I can tell you that for a fact. It's really interesting. And you said something which I really want to focus in on, is that I was recently having a conversation with a potential client, and she asked me about deliverables.
Mm-hmm.
And I pushed back on deliverables because I'm not a big believer in deliverables. What I am is a big believer in results. And you said results. You didn't say deliverables. So let's talk about that for a second,
Mm-hmm.
if we can. So when you go in, or somebody like you goes in, the business owner really should be focusing on the results that come to the company. So what kind of results would you like to have your clients focus on?
Well, again, it really depends.
And then I know it's a hard question.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I'll speak. It's because there's such a broad range of topics. Because if you're looking for a fractional marketing person, CMO, or
Let's
fractional
talk about a
CFO,
fractional integrator.
yeah, that's what we could. So let's narrow it down to that, and that's what my firm, Wolf's Edge Consulting, does. So I've actually used the term typically accountabilities, right? What are we accountable for? So
Sure.
we are, and again, assuming there's some familiarity with EOS, and obviously my firm is working with clients that are using EOS or willing and interested in doing EOS, running their company on that framework. And so we are leading and driving the level 10 meetings, being the leadership team meetings, making those usually 2 to 3 times more effective, and making the company move faster by doing that in just a much faster way, cracking the whip and making the leadership team a lot faster, simply through the level 10 meetings, same page meetings with the visionary every week. So they have a sounding board, someone to go over, talk about the other members of the leadership team with, someone who's been there, done this before at their type of business or bigger, and getting on the same page with them, meeting with the leadership team members, ensuring that they're focused on getting their to-dos done, which are the issues that were solved last week, so that we're really getting traction, ensuring people are focused on the concretely what needs to get done for their major priorities, their rocks that are going to make things different tomorrow than they are today. Because the issue that people in these leadership teams have is they are so underwater, so busy with all the stuff that they've got to get done in their day-to-day roles. They're so busy and underwater with the fires that they're always having to put out, that they end up never being able to get to the important but not urgent priorities that actually make things the way they want it in the future. So that stuff just never gets worked on. And so the fractional integrator, we're always coming in and bringing the focus back to the stuff that they care about and want to be different, rather than just the day to day and just the fire extinguishing that people end up getting caught up in. Look, I think
So
you're about to say something.
yeah, yeah. So you just used a whole bunch of jargon, which unless you're a traction person,
Fair
because you
point.
read traction and you know
Right.
about EOS, which stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System, by the way. Can we go back and just define all that jargon we just
Sure. I mean, so for those who aren't familiar, EOS stands for, as you just said, Entrepreneurial Operating System. In simple form, it's a simple set of tools that is designed for entrepreneurial businesses, meaning companies typically 10 to 250 people, to drive them towards vision, meaning getting everybody on the same page with their vision, where they want this organization to go, who they are, where they want it to go. Traction, meaning actually executing on that vision effectively from the top of the organization to the bottom, quote unquote, most frontline employee. And healthy, teaching people how to have a healthy leadership team, people who enjoy working together, like working together, work together effectively, and are cohesive, because unfortunately that's not how we are most of the time. So it's a simple set of tools that helps small and mid-sized businesses achieve that. And it does it. What I like about it is it does it in a way that gives you enough structure to start being effective, to start getting stuff done and getting clear on things, which you don't have at the startup mode, or when you're just in an all hands on deck, everybody's wearing all the hats type of mode, that you start to hit the ceiling that way and stop being able to grow at a certain point when you hit the ceiling. EOS helps you do that, but in a way that's not overly complicated. It's not overly corporate. It's not what you'd be doing at a 5,000 person, 10,000 person company. It's scaled down, simplified to a small few tools that are appropriate for a smaller organization like 10 to 250 people.
Yeah, and that's the thing I really like about Traction or EOS is that it's not overly systematic. It's not overly bureaucratic. And the truth is, I love the E-Myth. I love the idea of the E-Myth, but the truth is it's way too much detail unless you're an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
The nice
Right.
thing I like about Traction is it has a few tools. And if you use these few tools well, you can have an incredible result. So I'm going to put you on the spot again because I kind of like to do that. Let's say I have let's have an electrical contracting business. I've got 25 employees. I'm doing about $3 million in sales, and I'm making about $125,000 in profits. So I'm getting about a 3.5%, 4% profit. Not unusual for electrical contractors that haven't done a whole lot about improving their operations. If they were to work with a fractional integrator like your firm, what's the range of results they could expect to their bottom line after a year to 18 months?
I mean, it's, look, the goal is to drive things that really make a difference. It obviously depends a lot on why the margins are so tiny. I mean, you're saying that's typical. Is it because there's a lack of financial reporting on where our costs are going? Is there issues in the purchasing department? I do have in my fractional integrator firm a client as a flooring contractor. So, different kind of business specifically, but similar type of model. And a lot of times people are not budgeting what, like, they're just losing control of what the labor should be. The purchasing process is loose, it's not competitive. That people end up going to the same site 2 or 3 days when they should do it in 1 day. I'm not sure like why
Well, that would be, typically what would be the issue is an electrical contractor usually wouldn't have a purchasing issue. They buy material, they mark it up, and that's pretty standard and easy to do. Where their issue likely is they're spending too much time, and if something goes wrong, when something always goes wrong in the construction world, they get stuck and people stand around twiddling their thumbs.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's so many reasons why that kind of stuff can be happening. A lot of times it's a people issue. So what the fractional integrator might be able to come in and do is help you identify and be very systematic about identifying your people issues. Where do we have a field manager? Where do we have a project manager who's not really managing the project or who's not
Or
ensuring.
do we have a project manager?
Well, okay. Do we have a project manager? Do we have anybody that's planning the job before you get there? And so you're not like, oh, sending out, oh, get someone to get the scissors or get someone to get the knife. Just like you're not prepared for the jobs. They're not set up properly. So you
Yeah.
have to see where your issues are. Is it process issues? Is it people issues? And they can help you drive, whether it's rocks, meaning quarterly goals, or whether it's, just day-to-day issue resolution, and see where those problems are and drive you towards solutions on them, and help you hold yourself accountable and hold you accountable and your team accountable for actually executing on the solutions that you find. And if there's an issue with a project manager, they're helping drive you towards getting a different project manager. And maybe you're afraid of conflict. Maybe you don't like having hard conversations. And that's part of the issue, right? And so they can help hold your feet to the fire and hold their feet to the fire, kind of put you like you're hiring me or someone on my team or someone like me. You're hiring them to force you to do things you don't like to do, right? Because ultimately, if you're the owner of the business, I mean, the fractional integrator can't come in and fire someone without your knowledge or consent. So obviously, but they can hold your feet to the fire and get you to make the hard decisions that you've been putting off. And help drive resolution on that, help drive, new hires, maybe if you need to replace somebody before you could fire someone else. But, they can make that stuff happen. So when you have the project manager and you could spend, 1 day working on projects instead of 3 days working on projects because of inefficiency and lack of accountability or lack of organization, people who don't really know how to do their job very well. And you could fix those issues, then you could be up to 10, 15, 20, 30% profit. Again, depending on what the issue is, if that's even, I don't know if that's possible in specific businesses based on costs and labor and whatnot, but
The
it's a type of
best
result.
electrical contractor I've ever seen is 20% bottom line.
Okay.
That's
Well,
a
then
really
let's at
nice
least
bottom
get you
line if
to
you're an
let's at
electrical
least get you to
contractor.
15, 20% then, because if you're running right and not 3% or whatever it is, because that's crazy to make 130,000 or whatever you said from a $3 million top line revenue. Obviously that's kind of wild. But I have another client. I started working with this fractional integrator. It was an ad tech firm, different kind of industry, but also services. And they went from, in the first 3 months of working together, they increased the revenue 25%. 25% top line growth. And they had good margins already, but they had 25% top line revenue increase in the first quarter working together. Not because I'm magic or not because it's anything supernatural, but we just drive things that we're just, again, everybody's so busy, everybody's putting out fires, just kind of obvious stuff. And I don't know ad tech, but I just drove them towards actually executing on things that they knew or they've been putting off for years that just weren't getting done. And those things made a huge difference. Like they're just low-hanging fruit type of issues that needed to be solved. When you bring in somebody who knows how to drive accountability, who knows how to drive organization, knows how to look at where the people issues are and work on correcting them at the right pace and not rushing you too much. But organizations, I feel like, move towards their big goals and where they want to be 2 to 3 times faster than they do without this kind of help.
So just for folks who are listening or watching, I want to give you some examples because I've been in the same place Ben has, and we have results we've worked with. We often will see people we walk in that are in that $150,000, $200,000 profit range. And a year later, they're making $600,000. And a year after that, they're making well over $1 million. And it's not rocket science. It's not any big secret thing that we're doing.
Yeah.
Is we just continue to do the stuff that we know that works. I mean, one of the things, Ben, you mentioned was, are you planning before you do get out on the job site? Well, people in the contracting world don't plan before they get in the contract. They put the order in, the stuff gets delivered at a house or at a business. They show up and they sit there and scratch their heads and say, what should we do first?
Exactly. Such a waste of time. You burn your entire profit margin on that.
It's more than you burn it. It's like, and you may have planned for this and you've worked for years and you said, 3, 4, 5% is what we're going to do. And that's what my buddies get. And that's what I expect. Well, if you're in the subcontracting world and you're not at 15 to 20% bottom line, You need to find somebody to come in and help you. So let me ask you this question if you're listening, because again, this is a big deal. We just talked to Ben. So what's the average cost of a fractional CXX person to come in, or an integrator to come in and help you? Said, well, okay, it's around $75,000 a year. So here's my question. Would you be willing to pay Ben $75,000 a year, or pay me $75,000 a year if your profits went from $200,000 to $800,000 in the first year?
Right. It's a no-brainer.
I mean, this is the whole thing that folks do, is you can be
Right.
you can be, what's it, penny wise and pound foolish? You don't want to do that. What we want you to be thinking about here, and this is a really big deal. You didn't go to business school. I don't know if Ben went to business school, and I'm not a big fan of business school, but frankly, can learn
You go to
business
law
principles.
school, but you don't learn how to run a business in law school.
No, you don't. So here's the thing that I want you to be thinking about. Bring in fractional help. You don't need the full-time person. You need the fractional person. Do that, and you're going to have a much, much better business.
Right. And what I did with, I think you have it on your screen there, fractionalleadership.io. I mean, what I did was, because that business is not focused specifically on fractional integrators, COOs. I set up a group at this moment when we're recording this. We have about 80 fractional executives, both firms and solo practitioners, in the 5 areas: marketing, CMOs, sales, like VPs of sales, etc., operations, both COOs and fractional integrators, finance, meaning CFOs, and technology, CIOs and CTOs for small and mid-sized businesses, typically 5 to 250 people. We got vetted people. We've checked their references. We've met them. We've confirmed their core values, and we have a process. Just, you could find it on the website, for getting a referral to a vetted fractional leader. I mean, it is a very, very manual process. I know from personal experience how hard and manual and it is. You kiss a lot of frogs. And anyway, fractionalleadership.io, just trying to eliminate the frog kissing and skip straight to the finalists, because kissing frogs is no fun.
I would agree with that. And Ben, unfortunately, we are out of time. So the folks watching this on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn can see where you are. How would folks find you, and where can they find your book?
Yeah, so if you want to learn more, again, just look up or Google or Amazon Fractional Leadership, Landing Executive Talent you thought was out of reach. You can get info about everything I do, everything about fractional leadership. And if you are a fractional leader, you could apply to join our network or find a fractional leader if you're a business owner or leader. Fractionalleadership.io.
Cool. And I've got 2 things I would like you to do. The first, you've heard me say 10,000 times, or actually 342 times, but that's more like it, which is, please subscribe to this podcast if you're listening and you're not subscribed. And if you have not rated and reviewed us yet, please rate and review it. I hope you give us this great rating and review, but if you really can't stand us, you'll do something different. And the second is, I came out with my second book recently, which is called The Sale Ready Company. And you may say, gee, I don't want to sell my company. That's not the point. The point is, you want to have a sale ready company. And this time we're talking about our friend John Aardvark, and John is thinking about transitioning out of his business and transferring ownership to his children or child. We're not quite sure how that's going to come out, but you'll have to read the book to find out. It's a ton of fun, easy to get. In fact, if you want to save $7, you can go to our website at www.salereadycompany.com and order the book. You can get it for $7.95 instead of $14.95, and we get a whole bunch of bonuses with it. So go there and do that. And this is Josh Patrick. You're with Ben Wolf. We're at Cracking the Cash Flow Code. Thanks a lot for stopping by. I hope to see you back here really soon.
Thanks, Josh.